Hello, my spirited living community. This is Deborah Roth. Delighted to welcome you back to another episode in the exploration of our inner goddess team of what it means to embody the divine feminine by embracing all the different archetypes that she shows up in as goddesses around the world. Why is that important? I repeat that every week. And I think it bears repeating because we are in a period, and have been really for several millennia, where where the divine feminine, and it isn't just, and I also say this every week, this isn't just gender specific. When I talk about the divine feminine, it is gender free. Both men and women have the qualities of the divine feminine in them. The capacity for compassion, for community building, for honoring our intuition and our emotions, celebrating and really embracing our connection to nature, which with climate change and everything else is particularly critical right now, and our bodies. In early Christian Judeo, earliest traditions, the bodies were seen as bad and dirty, when actually the female body is why we're all here. We are the life givers. So how do we reclaim that? And it is important to all of us. I hope this little explanation each week helps you to deepen your connection with what it means to be embodying the divine feminine. So whether you're watching this near Samhain, Halloween, the Day of the Dead, which is our theme for today. I couldn't just pick one goddess because there are so many goddesses from around the world that are connected to this energy that we're in right now. So whether you're watching that now or any time during the year, you can always embody, and this is the case really for all of the goddesses that we play with here, that we embody here. You can really embrace the energy any time of day, night, any time of the year. So if you're tuning into this at a later time, please do consider the themes that I'm going to be suggesting here. So I couldn't pick one goddess because, as I said, there are literally goddesses all over the world that are honored at this time of year, at this transition between the seasons, really. This is the halfway point between the summer solstice and the fall equinox and the winter solstice. It was considered by pagans one of the most holiest of days, with women who honored the goddess in the Middle Ages, and still today. This was known as their New Year. And it is the time, and this is where we see it with our Halloween, and ancients called it, in the Celtic tradition, called it Samhain, Samhain. This was the time when the veil was considered to be the thinnest between the living and the dead. It is why we have in Mexico El Dia de los Muertes, and I have this wonderful, if you've seen the movie Coco, that's a very sweet introduction. But if not, there's my little skeleton from Mexico, one of our trips to Mexico. And it is a time when we celebrate ancestors. And in Mexico, they actually have picnics on their beloved ancestors and those recently passed and not so recently on their grave sites. And they have sugared skeletons like the one I just showed you. And they really honor and are not running away from the dead, and actually in many traditions in Southeast Asia, it's called different things, but and I'll give you some of the names. They set a place at the table. In fact, one of them, let's see, I've done this so many times that you'd think I'd remember all of the celebrations at this point. It's called, in the People's Republic of China, it's called Receiving Ancestors Festival. In pre-revolution China, it was called the Hungry Ghost Festival. And it was, and this is where it really speaks to really bringing them into your everyday life. The Dahomey people of West Africa call it setting the table. They literally set a place at the table for their ancestors. and it's called Immorti in Sicily, where the table again is set for those who are returning from the grave. It's no accident, I suppose, that all of these celebrations around our ancestors and honoring the dead and loved ones falls around the Scorpio time of year. The sun enters Scorpio on, I think, October 23rd maybe, and it will stay there maybe the 22nd, and then it will stay there until November 21st. And Scorpio is ruled by the god of the underworld. How perfect is that? And also represents death and rebirth and transformation. So it's a perfect time, and it also embraces the woman's mysteries. When I do my new moon circles, there is a new moon next week on November 5th, I believe. I won't be doing it because I have my charitable theater group is presenting that weekend. So it's with the Scorpio energy, I invite you, while you may not be any of those in any of those cultures in celebrating some of these very powerful holy days, I would invite you to embrace the theme of transformation, embrace the theme of rebirth. What is it that you need to let go of at this time in order to let new things flow forward? If you like the idea of considering this a new year, this was the time in the Celtic calendar where they would bring in all those in pasture, and they'd hunker down for the winter, and then they'd move into the deepest, darkest time of the year, really. Because once we get to the winter solstice, these 6 weeks right before the winter solstice are the darkest times of the year. Once the winter solstice comes, although it may not feel that way, the sun slowly begins to return. So this is a time to embrace the dark, not as this scary, evil place, which sadly, that's been a big amount of patriarchal layering, I think, too, dark and the light, but as a place to go within and to really explore where it is that you need to create some transformation. What do you need to let go of in order to open up to whatever is next? Now, some of the goddesses, that's why I couldn't bring in so many of them. Isis, this was a time when she was searching for Horus to bring his pieces back together. Inanna is, and all of these deserve their own very long description. Inanna, the myth, the Sumerian myth of Inanna and Ereshkigal, where she descends to the underworld. That's happening this time of year. Persephone is now deeply in the underworld. She's made her descent. Who else? Kali, Kali Ma, Mother Kali, the Hindu goddess from India. This is a time for honoring her. She's the goddess there of destruction and of protection. So all of these, it's very complex. Baba Yaga is another one. She's kind of the classic. She rides on her mortar and pestle. She's an Eastern European goddess, mythological figure, and she rides through the air like witches on brooms. So just understanding that so much of the stuff that's been layered onto this very sacred ancient holiday all over the world, we want to reclaim some of the holiness of this time. All Hallows Eve was how the Christian church kind of co-opted this sacred time, Samhain, in the Celtic lands, in Ireland and ancient Britain. And in fact, with the Irish potato famine back in whenever that was, the 1800s, they were the ones that brought Halloween, what we now know as Halloween, All Hallows Eve, Halloween, the evening of Hallow. Hallow is sacred. So to me, I kind of get goosebumps. I think I've often led Samhain, Day of the Dead, remembrance services. We did one at our Unitarian church this past Sunday. It's a beautiful time, not only to do your own personal work in terms of what needs to be let go of and transformed in this deep, dark time, but also it's obviously a time to honor our ancestors and those loved ones who have passed on, either recently or more in the past. My dad died 25 years ago, and I still bring him, have a picture of him on my altar this time of year, this sacred time of year. So if any of this resonates with you, definitely subscribe and come back. As I said, please do remember that you can embody these. You can honor your ancestors whenever you want. Obviously, I think it's very powerful to do it now when culturally in all these traditions around the world, it is considered the time when the veil is considered the thinnest between the living and the dead. Chrysanthemums, that's a way that you might honor the dead. In the Creole traditions, they were considered the flowers of the dead. And Aztecs, Creoles of New Orleans would place them on their grave sites. This was another fun thing. The word for ghost and the word and guest, ghost and guest, come from the same Germanic root, which is kind of cool, which is I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's Geist, I guess, Geist. So there's so much layering. I just really invite you to do your own sort of exploration about this too. Look up some of those goddesses that I've mentioned. Hecate is another very deep goddess connected with the underworld, but we'll talk more about her on her feast day, which is coming up in a couple weeks in November. So I invite you, as always, to do your own research. Identify those goddesses, those faces of the divine feminine that you want to bring very consciously into your own inner goddess team to call on when you need their wisdom, when you need their support. So the question that I leave you with is two, I think, this time. Take your choice, make your choice, or do both. What do you need to let go of? What do you need to transform to open up to what is next as we move into this dark time of year? This is a time of just such deep rumination and meditation. And the second question, are there ancestors or loved ones who have passed on that you'd just like to create a very beautiful altar for, maybe? Get some chrysanthemums, maybe a little bit of their favorite food. I often do that in our new moon circles when we're honoring our ancestors. So those are just some of the ways that you can use the energy that we're talking about here. Give me some comments. I'd love to hear if you try any of these things. Let me know how all this resonates with you. And I will leave you with a chant that I think I've sung here before that honors the multiple goddesses that we celebrate this time of year. And it goes like this. Hecate, Caradwin, dark mothers let us in. Hela, Kalima, let us be reborn. Hecate, Caradwin, dark mothers take us in. Hela, Kalima, let us be reborn. Hecate, Caradwin, dark mothers take us in. Hela, Kalima, let us be reborn. My favorite witch's hat, and the origin of the witch's hat is also a pretty complex one. Definitely look that one up too. And it was meant as a symbol of evil, and it was but there's all kinds of things attached to it. When actually one of the interpretations is that it's the cone. So you can't see it in all the way up because the cone is kind of up there. The cone is a way to call down the divine. And in women's spirituality circles, one of the things that's often done to send power, to send the work of whatever we've done in our sacred space out to the world, to bless the world, to help the world, is we create a cone of power. And you do that by starting very, quietly, and then raising your voice, going, wah, until it increases in volume and in pitch, and everybody's going, and it's like it's so powerful. So we can think of this as a cone of power too. Reclaim the witch's hat. So have a beautiful celebration of your ancestors, of the Day of the Dead, of your own rebirth and regrowth, and let me know how it all goes. I'd love to hear your comments about it. Thanks so much, and we'll see you here next week. Namaste. Bye for now.